This person is making a very important choice about you, a choice that is quietly reshaping their world in ways you cannot see yet. Listen closely, because what I am about to share may be happening in someone's mind right now, silently, privately, and deeply in ways that even they struggle to understand. You may not know it, but there is someone whose thoughts return to you much more often than they would ever confess. They replay moments, conversations, looks, and unspoken feelings over and over again, circling around those memories like moths around a candle, unsure whether they should come closer or move away. On the outside, everything may seem calm, normal, or even distant. But inside, a storm is unfolding. A storm where you are at the center of everything. They are standing at one of the most important emotional crossroads of their life, and the choice before them is neither simple nor temporary. It is not something they can decide casually, carelessly, or without deep thought. This decision is not about your name, your social media profile, or memories that may slowly fade with time. It is about you as a person, as a presence, as someone whose existence carries meaning and consequences in their life. They are asking themselves questions that go much deeper than ordinary concerns. Should I move forward or pull back? Should I open my heart or stay hidden behind fear? Should I fight for this connection or surrender to the unknown? Every choice feels heavy because each one requires honesty, courage, and self-examination. This person is going through a quiet but powerful inner battle that almost nobody around them can see. To others, they may appear composed, cheerful, and completely normal. They may continue working, spending time with people, smiling, and following their usual routine as if nothing is wrong. But inside, a completely different reality exists. During quiet moments, late at night, early in the morning, or during small breaks in their day, they find their mind returning to you again and again. They ask themselves difficult questions that have no easy answers. What if this choice changes my entire life? What if choosing this person requires me to become someone I have never been before? What if I lose them forever because I waited too long? What if I try and fail? Every question adds more weight to their thoughts. There is something most people never understand. Silence is rarely the absence of feelings. Very often, it is the presence of fear. Fear can hide behind calmness, patience, or even indifference. Some people do not express their emotions because they are terrified of losing control and afraid of becoming vulnerable. Some hesitate to pursue love because nobody ever showed them what safety inside love truly feels like. Others resist getting close, not because they do not care, but because caring feels dangerous, as if it could reopen wounds they still have not healed. As Carl Jung once said, "Where your fear is, there your task is." And right now, you are the task they cannot ignore. Their heart keeps pulling them toward you. It remembers the peace, understanding, and quiet comfort they felt around you. In your presence, they saw a version of themselves they had almost forgotten existed. A version that could be open, honest, and emotionally vulnerable. But their mind keeps resisting. Their mind brings back old pain, disappointments, failures, and whispers of doubt. It questions whether they are strong enough, healed enough, or worthy enough to go after what stands before them. They are trapped between hope and fear, between the comfort of staying the same and the courage that growth demands. And you are at the center of this tension. This decision feels heavy because it is about transformation just as much as it is about love. Not every relationship leaves a lasting mark. Some people move through our lives without touching our deeper layers. Many connections are temporary, short-lived, or simply lessons that eventually end. But with you, something much deeper happened. You did not simply exist in their world. You awakened something inside them. You activated parts of their mind and heart that they had never fully faced. You brought out both desire and fear. You challenged their comfort without forcing them. You reflected their insecurities without judging them, and reminded them of possibilities they had forgotten. Choosing you means change, and change always feels threatening to the ego. Growth requires courage, and courage demands that a person face their inner truths. Around you, they felt more alive, more real, more exposed, and more understood than they had allowed themselves to feel in years. This connection does not disappear simply because words remain unspoken or because circumstances change. The emotional mark remains. It becomes a quiet pulse that returns during moments of stillness and reflection. This is why your name creates a reaction inside them. This is why memories of you awaken emotions. This is why the thought of losing you forever creates a tightness in their chest that they cannot fully explain. You were not a distraction in their life, you were a direction. You were not noise, you carried meaning. And when someone meets a person whose presence feels that clear, they are forced to look at themselves in ways they cannot avoid. Jung also believed that until unconscious parts of ourselves become conscious, they control our lives while we call it fate. Right now, this person is standing at the edge of that realization. Avoiding the situation no longer feels neutral. Silence no longer feels safe. Indecision now has consequences. They know that waiting too long could mean losing you. They know that someone else may recognize your value without hesitation, and that the opportunity they ignored may not remain forever. At the same time, fear still remains. They are afraid of being hurt again. They are afraid that old wounds may return. They fear that they may not be enough for the emotional depth your presence brings into their life. Their hesitation is as much about themselves as it is about you. They keep asking whether they are enough for this connection, whether they have the courage to pursue love without running away, and whether the risk of vulnerability is worth the reward of something real. Deep love exposes insecurities. And when someone realizes they may lose something priceless, self-doubt often becomes stronger. They quietly compare themselves to the experience they shared with you, wondering whether they can rise to the occasion or whether retreat feels safer. And yet, even in all this uncertainty, the gravity of your presence keeps pulling them forward. It reminds them that some risks deserve to be taken, some opportunities deserve to be embraced, and some connections shape an entire lifetime. This decision is forming quietly and invisibly inside the hidden corners of their mind, where thoughts move in circles without resolution. And while they continue to think, something else is happening. Something subtle but undeniable that you need to understand. Your energy matters. The way you carry yourself, the way you respect your boundaries, and the way you choose yourself instead of waiting in uncertainty, all reach them in ways they cannot explain. Sometimes the moment someone chooses you is not the same moment they act. Sometimes it happens when you stop waiting to be chosen. When you fully step into your own life and stop pausing because of their confusion, an invisible shift begins. The atmosphere around them changes, and they are forced to face the truth of your importance. As Jung said, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. The deepest transformation happens when you stop putting your life on hold because of someone else's uncertainty. This is where your role begins. Not by forcing answers or demanding clarity, but by simply existing as someone who refuses to make themselves smaller for another person's comfort. And while they continue debating and repeating the same questions inside their mind, something within them is already changing. Awareness has been awakened. And once awareness appears, there is no easy return to ignorance. Memories of you start returning, not in dramatic ways, but in quiet flashes that catch them by surprise. They remember how you listened without trying to fix everything. They remember how you gave them space without demanding answers. They remember how accepted they felt with you, free from pressure or possession. Every memory becomes a quiet revelation. It shows them not only who they are, but also who they could become. This realization unsettles them, not because of you, but because of what you represent: emotional honesty, depth, and a reflection of their own hidden potential. Mirrors can be uncomfortable for people who are still dealing with their shadows, and as Carl Jung observed, people will go to great lengths to avoid facing their own souls. Right now, they are standing face to face with theirs. And that confrontation creates tension, uncertainty, and inner back and forth. One moment, they feel deeply drawn toward you, imagining the courage it would take to step closer, speak honestly, and choose love. The next moment, retreat becomes their natural response. They convince themselves that distance feels safer, that silence gives them control, and that time may somehow solve what they are unwilling to face. But deep down, they know something important. Time does not remove meaningful connections. It only reveals how meaningful they truly are. And every day that passes quietly pushes them closer to a decision they can no longer avoid. Somehow solve the conflict they keep trying to avoid. But time does not erase connections that carry real meaning. It simply makes them easier to see. They begin to notice how life feels when you are not there. It feels less bright, less alive, and emptier in ways they never fully admitted before. You did not simply occupy a place in their life. You changed the emotional atmosphere inside it, and that change remains. They feel that something important has shifted, and this awareness brings a decision to the surface. Impossible to deny and impossible to escape. At this stage, another layer of inner struggle appears: responsibility. Their questions move beyond attraction and toward accountability. Can I show up consistently? Can I be emotionally open instead of only interested? Can I protect this connection instead of hurting it when fear shows up? Can I love fully without hiding or pulling away? These questions feel heavy because choosing you would mean no half measures, no confusion, no shortcuts, and no excuses. They clearly understand that you are not someone made for games or endless waiting. Choosing you requires integrity, and integrity demands personal growth. Deep love is rarely simple. It asks for self-reflection, courage, and the willingness to become more than what feels safe. Many people hesitate at this exact point, not because they do not care, but because they care deeply. They understand that fully stepping into your life requires them to face their weaknesses, confront old patterns that no longer serve them, and become a version of themselves that is stronger, braver, and more honest. Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Growth is uncomfortable. Love that transforms us is also uncomfortable. They are standing at that doorway, feeling the pressure of discomfort pushing against their desire. They sense that the choice you represent is not only about connection, it is also about transformation. And transformation never arrives without a price. It is exactly this price that makes hesitation feel both protective and painful. They also notice the quiet changes taking place within you. Even if you have not spoken about them, they feel them in your energy. You are chasing less, explaining less, and reaching into silence less for validation. You seem more grounded, more centered, and more focused on yourself. This change unsettles them because the illusion of control disappears when someone stops waiting for permission to live fully. Your life keeps moving ahead. Your value does not stop. The reality of your progress, your calmness, and your confident momentum shines a light on their indecision. When someone stops chasing, the dynamics change. When someone chooses themselves, it awakens awareness. And once awareness appears, it cannot easily be ignored. This realization starts to create urgency. They begin imagining situations they previously avoided. You meeting someone new, choosing peace instead of longing, or quietly closing a door without any argument or drama. That possibility awakens attachment, reveals fear, and increases the seriousness of what they may lose. They feel the silent pull of inevitability. the sense that time will not wait forever, and that lost opportunities cannot always return. Your presence, your energy, and your self-respect all act as powerful triggers, forcing them to face the consequences of hesitation. The thoughts that arise are not only about desire, they are about responsibility, courage, and the realization that love is just as much about commitment as it is about feelings. Not the possessive kind of love, but the vulnerable kind. The kind that quietly admits, "This mattered to me much more than I allowed myself to feel." It is a vulnerability that carries weight because admitting it opens the door to fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being seen too clearly, fear of disappointing you, and fear of reopening wounds they believed had already healed. Sometimes, instead of taking action, they freeze. They convince themselves that staying still is neutral and that delaying things causes no harm. Yet even by doing nothing, a decision is slowly being formed. Each day that courage is not chosen, a small regret quietly grows. A silent tension settles within them, a feeling that something meaningful is being delayed. In this silence, a paradox appears. Every moment of hesitation is also a moment of choice. They begin to understand the cost of not moving forward. Choosing not to act is not neutral. It carries consequences. If they choose you, they risk the vulnerability that comes with pain. If they avoid choosing you, they risk the lasting ache of regret, a burden often heavier than heartbreak itself. Heartbreak can heal with time, but regret grows quietly and remains persistent. This is why you still occupy space in their mind and heart. This is why distractions feel empty, why noise cannot replace meaning, and why silence creates discomfort instead of peace. Through you, they are learning an important truth. Avoiding vulnerability no longer feels satisfying. Emotional safety without depth feels empty. Comfort without connection leaves the soul restless. And logical explanations only delay the realization that courage is necessary. The question slowly changes from, "Do I feel something?" to, "Do I have the courage to honor what I feel?" Meanwhile, your role remains unchanged. You are not responsible for convincing them, proving your value, or waiting in uncertainty. Your power lies in staying aligned with yourself, choosing your growth, protecting your peace, and directing your life with clarity. Whether they step forward now, later, or never, the most important movement is happening within you. When you fully accept yourself and your worth stops being negotiable, clarity speeds up. Either they rise to meet you, or they step aside. Both outcomes support your evolution. As Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Right now, the invitation is mutual. Awakening is calling both of you. This tension becomes deeper because the choice is no longer only emotional. It has become existential. They sense that choosing you is not merely choosing a relationship. It is choosing a new standard, a transformed self, and a version of themselves that requires responsibility, consistency, and authenticity. That realization is intimidating. Some people are comfortable with longing, but unprepared for accountability. They enjoy the feeling of connection, but fear the structure that love and commitment demand. When a bond feels as meaningful as the one they shared with you, it requires honesty. Self-sabotage often appears as hesitation, rationalization, or withdrawal. But underneath it all is fear. The fear of failing at something that truly matters. The fear of facing the depth of what your presence reveals within them. When something touches a person's core, failure feels personal. You touch their core. You force them to question their capacity. Capacity not only for passion, but for presence. Not only for affection, but for consistency. Not only for desire, but for emotional reliability. They hesitate because choosing you requires complete visibility, full accountability, and the courage to let go of pretense. They can no longer hide behind timing, distance, or uncertainty. To choose you is to step into full exposure, something frightening for a person who has learned to survive by protecting themselves. At the same time, they begin to notice another change in you. Quiet strength, grounded energy, and self-confidence become more visible. Your stability unsettles them, but it also creates longing. They see that you are no longer chasing. They feel that your life continues without waiting for their permission. Your value is embodied, unspoken, yet impossible to deny. Desire often grows with distance, and when that distance is carried with dignity, it increases the pull. They start missing not only your presence, but also the way they felt around you. The emotional clarity, the calmness, and the feeling of being understood without needing to explain everything. They compare other connections and realize that nothing truly matches the authenticity they shared with you. Authenticity leaves a lasting mark. It remains in memory, perception, and even in the nervous system. Attempts to replace or recreate it fail. The connection cannot be resolved without acknowledgement, and avoidance only increases its weight. The fear of losing you becomes real. Your moving on begins to feel possible, real, and unavoidable. Meanwhile, you continue moving along your own path. Your progress, alignment, and choices create a powerful energy that invites awakening in others. But your attention remains on your own evolution. Every decision you make now strengthens your integrity, your self-worth, and your direction. Whether they move toward you or retreat once again, your life continues, and your energy radiates stability, confidence, and purpose. This is the quiet yet powerful shift in energy. Your value no longer needs validation from them. Their actions, hesitation, deep thinking, and final decision are only secondary. You have embraced your worth, and that presence naturally demands recognition. Desire, admiration, and longing grow stronger in response, and the tension that once connected both of you slowly begins to make sense, revealing an unavoidable truth. The next step belongs to them. But the most important step has already happened within you. Patience does not mean giving up on yourself. Love does not ask you to erase your own identity or lower your worth just to fit inside another person's uncertainty. Understanding someone does not mean you must accept confusion forever. Your role is not to remain trapped in waiting, putting your life on hold while another person struggles with fear. Your role is to stay connected to your own truth and keep building a life that feels meaningful, steady, and filled with self-respect. Every decision you make and every boundary you protect sends energy outward. When someone realizes that your attention is no longer revolving around their indecision, not because you are angry, but because you are growing and changing, their understanding becomes much sharper. The shift becomes impossible to ignore. They start to feel the reality of the situation. Your life cannot remain paused because of their hesitation. This is often the moment when people feel pushed to make a choice, not because they fear being alone, but because they finally recognize your value. Either they move forward with courage, honesty, and responsibility, or they step away and allow the connection to end with dignity. There is no lasting middle ground. This is where destiny responds, not as a punishment and not as a reward, but as alignment. Connections that are meant to continue find a path through truth, bravery, and emotional honesty. Connections that are meant to teach a lesson naturally let go when growth is rejected. Both endings have meaning, both support personal growth, both honor the deeper movement of life. Quietly and invisibly, momentum is building toward an answer. Soon, that change will show itself in the outer world. It may come as a message, a confession, a decision, or even a silence that finally brings understanding. Until then, your strongest action is to remain grounded in your own value. The moment you stop bargaining with your worth, life also stops negotiating your outcomes. Pressure begins to rise. Not through force, but through awareness. When a decision is delayed for too long, life starts answering on its own. They notice signs that cannot be ignored. Memories return. Restlessness grows stronger. Sudden moments of understanding appear, together with a strong urge toward honesty that feels both urgent and frightening. It feels as though an inner voice keeps whispering, "This cannot remain unresolved." Distraction no longer works, because avoiding the issue becomes heavier than facing the fear itself. They begin realizing something difficult. Indecision is not protecting them, it is draining them. Silence and delay do not reduce the emotional weight. They make it even heavier. The patterns they once depended on for survival begin demanding attention. Pulling away when things become serious, overthinking emotions, and delaying vulnerability can no longer hide in the background. With this recognition comes a deeper awareness. If these patterns continue, they will repeat themselves not only with you, but in every important part of their life. At this point, the connection becomes symbolic. You stop being only a person in their life and begin representing a crossroads. One road leads toward growth, responsibility, and emotional truth. The other leads toward familiar comfort, emotional safety, and unchanged habits. The reality of this choice becomes clear, unavoidable, and deeply personal. They know which path creates growth and which one simply repeats old patterns. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. At this moment, their hidden fears become fully visible. Fear of closeness, fear of not being enough, fear of being completely seen. You brought these hidden fears into the light. You became more than a romantic interest. You became a mirror. And mirrors demand honesty. The decision is no longer about making a simple choice. It is about facing who they are and who they have the potential to become. Questions rise to the surface and refuse to be ignored. Am I living from fear or from truth? Am I choosing comfort or integrity? Am I avoiding pain or am I avoiding growth? Remaining neutral is no longer possible. At the same time, your energy has changed in subtle but powerful ways. You are no longer waiting with hope and expectation. This does not mean your feelings have disappeared. It means you have chosen alignment with yourself. Your energy now reflects stability, clarity, and purpose. You move from waiting to becoming, from observing to taking action, and from hoping to living fully. This transformation changes the emotional atmosphere completely. When someone realizes they can no longer have passive access to your energy, urgency appears. The belief that there is endless time begins to disappear.